All right, picture this, man. You've got one of the greatest football clubs in history, a team that gave us Messi, Xavi, Iniesta, Ronaldinho, nights at the Camp Nou that felt like pure magic, the kind of stuff that made kids all over the world fall in love with the game. And then out of nowhere, boom, they collapse. Billions in debt, can't pay wages, can't even keep Messi. And suddenly the kings of football look more like a sinking ship than a dynasty. And that's wild because we're not talking about some small club punching above its weight. We're talking about Barcelona, a name so massive, it's practically a religion. And now the whole world is asking, can they survive this? Can they rebuild? Can they ever get back to the top? And that's what we're diving into right now. The money mess, the heartbreak, the crazy risks they're taking, the kids carrying the future on their shoulders, and whether this fallen empire can actually pull off one of the greatest comebacks in sports history. So buckle up because this isn't just about football. It's about pride, survival, and what happens when legends fall and have to rise again. The whole thing with Barcelona's massive debt and mismanagement is like watching this legendary fighter who used to dominate the world suddenly start blowing his money on Ferraris, tigers, and private jets. And then one day you realize he's flat broke. And that's basically what happened with Barca. They were at the top of football, the kings of Europe, rolling in cash, filling up Camp Nou with almost 100,000 people every week. But behind the scenes, the club was bleeding money like crazy, giving out ridiculous contracts where players who weren't even starters were making superstar wages, dropping hundreds of millions on transfers that made zero sense, like Dembele, Coutinho, Griezmann, huge price tags, no proper plan. And instead of stopping to say, maybe we should fix this, they just kept throwing cash at problems like it was monopoly money. Then COVID hit, stadiums were empty, match day revenue vanished, and suddenly the whole system collapsed. Like all the bad decisions stacked up and crushed them. And the craziest part is how messy the leadership was. Presidents making ego-driven moves, using the club like a political stage, no accountability, just handing out money to keep fans happy short-term while digging a giant hole long-term. And that hole turned into more than €1 billion of debt, like actual insane numbers that don't even feel real. And it got to the point where they couldn't even register players they signed, couldn't renew Messi's contract, even though he literally wanted to play for free or close to free. The rules wouldn't allow it. And that's when the world saw just how broken things were. Because how the hell does one of the richest, most powerful clubs in history lose the greatest player ever because they can't pay their bills? It's madness. And it all came down to years of reckless spend, poor planning, and a complete disconnect between the football side and the financial side. Like they were living in fantasy land thinking the money would never run out. And when it did, boom, the empire crumbled right in front of everyone's eyes. Messi's departure from Barcelona was one of those moments in sports where the entire world just stopped and went, what the hell just happened? Because this wasn't just a player leaving a club, this was like ripping the soul out of the team. Messi wasn't some signing or a short-term super. He was Barcelona. He was their identity, their brand, their history, the kid who grew up in their academy, the guy who defined an entire era of football. And for years, people thought he'd retire there, that the Camp Nou would be his forever home. But when the financial crisis hit and those insane debts caught up to them, the nightmare became real. And what's even crazier is Messi actually wanted to stay, like he was ready to take a massive pay cut. And then you had him sitting there crying in that press conference saying goodbye. And it didn't feel real. It felt like watching Superman pack his bags because Metropolis couldn't afford the rent anymore. And the reason wasn't football. It wasn't about his ability or desire, it was pure financial chaos. The club literally couldn't register his contract because of La Liga's salary cap rules. So even though Messi and Barca both wanted to keep the story going, the system said nope, and just like that, boom, he's gone. Off to them. The whole world was like watching your parents get divorced after decades together. People were crying in the streets, kids were burning jerseys, others were hugging them like relics. It was heartbreak at a scale you rarely see in sport, and it sent this shockwave through football because if Barcelona can lose Messi, the greatest player in their history, maybe the greatest ever, then nothing is sacred. And you could see it in his eyes too, that sadness, that disbelief. Like even he couldn't believe he was leaving for Barca. It was the ultimate symbol of failure. Like here's how bad your mismanagement got. You lost Messi, the goose that laid the golden eggs, the guy who sold out your stadium, your shirts, your global brand, and you just let him walk because you couldn't handle your finance. It was the ultimate tragedy, man. A club that once felt untouchable losing the one thing that made them immortal. Man, the whole economic levers thing, Barcelona pulled is like watching a desperate gambler pawn his house, his car, and his future paychecks just to stay in the game a little longer, because that's literally what they did. They were drowning in debt, couldn't even register new players. The club was on life support, and then the new president, Laporta, comes in with this wild idea like, all right, we're going to sell off pieces of our future to raise cash right now. And it sounded crazy, but they actually did it. They sold a chunk of their future TV rights, like the money they'd be making 20 years from now, just gone, handed over to investors. They sold parts of their media arm and parts of their licensing and merchandising. It was like a fire sale, but dressed up in a slick business term. Economic levers, and the funny part is it worked in the short term. Suddenly they had hundreds of millions to throw around again. They bought Lewandowski, Koundé, Rafa, extended contracts, and fans were like, Barca is back, baby. But underneath, man, it's dangerous, because what they basically did was mortgage their future. Like, imagine taking out 10 payday loans to flex at the club this weekend. You look good now, but in 5 years you're screwed, and that's the gamble. Laporta was betting on Barcelona's brand being so big, so untouchable, that the risk will pay off, that winning trophies, filling the stadium, selling shirts will generate enough income to cover the future losses. But that's a razor's edge, because if the team doesn't perform, if the revenue doesn't explode, then the debt just gets scarier, and the critics are already saying they're just kicking the can down the road, making the next generation deal with an even bigger mess. But here's the thing, Barcelona is not a normal club. Their fan base is massive. Their brand power is unmatched. So maybe, just maybe, the gamble works and they rebuild fast enough to survive it. But make no mistake, man, those economic levers were like strapping dynamite to your chest and hoping the timer doesn't run out while you're still standing in the ring. And the fact that a club of Barca's size even had to go that route shows how deep in the hole they really were. The whole thing with young talent and Xavi's project at Barcelona is like watching a legendary dojo that got burned to the ground, and now the old master comes back, grabs a bunch of kids off the street and says, all right, we're rebuilding this from scratch. And that's exactly the vibe with Barca right now. Because even though they've been broke, battered, and humiliated, the one thing they still have is La Masia and the ability to produce insane talent. And you look at guys like Pedri, Xavi, Ansu, these kids aren't just prospects, they're already playing like seasoned warriors, stepping into a club with the heaviest jersey in world football and holding their own. And Xavi, man, him coming back as coach is almost poetic, because he's the embodiment of that tiki-taka. He lived it, breathed it, perfected it under Pep, and now he's trying to inject it back into a team that lost its way. And he's doing it through these kids, molding them into the next generation of legends. And the crazy thing is they're fearless, like Xavi throwing himself into tackles against guys twice his size, Pedri pulling strings in midfield like he's been playing for a decade, Ansu carrying the pressure of Messi's old number 10 shirt on his back. It's wild, and you can see Xavi's fingerprints all over. He's trying to re-establish identity, make Barca play like Barca again instead of some confused wannabe super club. And sure, it's not perfect. They're inconsistent. The pressure is enormous. And the financial mess means they can't just buy their way out of problems like City or PS. But maybe that's the beauty of it, because they're forced to trust their kids, forced to go back to their roots. And if it works, man, it's going to be one of the greatest comeback stories in sports. Like watching a fallen samurai rebuild his clan from nothing. And Xavi's project is exactly that. Bet that culture, identity, and raw talent can overcome financial chaos. And when you see those young players wearing the shirt with pride, it gives you that hope that, yeah, maybe Barcelona isn't dead. Maybe they're just being reborn in real time. The big question everyone's asking is, can Barcelona actually return to the top? And that's like asking if a fallen king who's been stripped of his crown, his gold, and half his army can somehow fight his way back to the throne. And honestly, with Barca, you can never count them out, because this isn't some small club trying to punch above its weight. This is one of the biggest football brands in history. Their name alone still carries insane power. They've got a global fan base that worships them like a religion, sponsors that still want to be attached to their crests, and a history that demands greatness. And yeah, right now the financial situation is brutal. They're still buried under debt. They've sold off parts of their future. They lost Messi. They've had to gamble on short-term fixes. But football has this way of forgiving fast if you start winning again. That's what Xavi's project with the young guns is banking on, that if they can build a team around Pedri, Xavi, Aravi, sprinkle in experienced leaders like Lewandowski, and re-establish that Barca identity, then trophies will follow. And trophies bring money, and money brings stability, but it won't be easy because the landscape has changed. You've got state-backed monsters like Manchester City and PSG throwing around unlimited cash. You've got Real Madrid still steady and ruthless, and the Premier League in general is just a financial juggernaut. So Barca's margin for error is razor thin. They can't afford more stupid transfers or bloated contracts. They've got to be smarter, leaner, more strategic, and at the same time handle the pressure of their fans who don't accept rebuilding years. They expect greatness every season. And the thing is, you watch them play and you see flashes, you see that magic still alive, and you realize if any club can drag itself out of a hole this deep, it's Barcelona, because their culture, their philosophy, and their global pull is too strong to just fade away. So yeah, it's a gamble. It's going to be painful, but the story of football is full of fallen giants who came back, and if Barca can survive these next few years, keep their kids developing, keep their identity intact, then absolutely they can return to the top. And when they do, it'll feel like one of the most epic comeback stories the sport has ever seen. All right, so here's the way I see it, man. Barcelona's story right now isn't just about football, it's about falling flat on your face. After years of living like kings and then having to claw your way back with blood, sweat, and belief, they got crushed by their own greed. They lost their greatest legend. They mortgaged their future just to breathe. But they still got that heart, they still got that fire. And if history tells us anything, it's that giants don't stay down forever. So yeah, it's going to be ugly. It's going to be painful, but if they lean on their youth, trust Xavi's vision, and rebuild with brains instead of ego, they can rise again, maybe not overnight, but brick by brick, and when they do, it'll be one of the greatest comebacks this sport has ever seen, because everyone loves a redemption story, and Barcelona's got the script written, they just need to act it out, so good luck to them. Good luck to every fan out there still riding with the badge through all the chaos, and thank you for hanging with me on this wild ride. I appreciate you. Stay passionate, stay curious, and I'll catch you on the next one.